welcome to Levant TV headlines. The Islamic State group has released 216 Yazidis, including 14 children, after holding them captive for 8 months. Saudi Arabia's General Authority for Civil Aviation said it blocked an Iranian flight carrying 260 pilgrims from Saudi airspace because it had not got prior clearance. Washington has warned it would not stand by while Iran supports rebels in Yemen, as Iran's President Hassan Rouhani called for an end to airstrikes in Yemen. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has warned that Tehran will not sign on to a final nuclear deal with world powers unless it is accompanied by the immediate lifting of all economic sanctions. And French television network TV5 Monde has been hacked by people claiming allegiance to the Islamic State group, as hackers briefly cut transmission of 11 channels and took over its websites and social media accounts. Now let's take a look at the top headlines in today's newspapers in the Middle East. Starting from the UAE, the Khalij Times leads, reporting that UAE's Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan says the UAE will stand by Yemen against Houthi militants and will not rule out sending ground troops. The paper also reports that Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum says that the UAE's position as the most generous aid donor in the world for the second consecutive year reflected the nation's founding principles of unconditional support for those in need. From Lebanon, the Daily Star leads, reporting that visiting Iranian presidential envoy Morteza Sarmadi discussed the crisis in Yemen and the recent nuclear deal reached between Iran and the West with Hezbollah leader Saeed Hassan Nasrallah. The paper also reports that a mother and her 8-month-old son were taken to Dar al-Amal hospital overnight after suffering gunshot wounds as they were caught in the crossfire of a shooting in Britain. The Egypt Independent leads, reporting that Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said Egypt should free ousted Islamist President Mohamed Morsi from jail and lift death sentences against his supporters before Ankara could consider an improvement in relations with Cairo. The paper also reports that the Democratic current parties announced they would not participate in the second session of dialogue with Prime Minister Ibrahim Mehleb and other political parties on the amendment of the parliamentary elections law because of what they described as chaos and disorganization in Tuesday's session. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East headlines from the UK papers. The Telegraph leads its Middle East news, reporting that fears that the escalating civil war in Yemen could ignite a wider conflict among the Gulf powers grew on Wednesday as Iran dispatched 2 military ships towards the southern coastal city of Aden. Iran, which denies claims from Arab states that it is backing the Houthis, insisted the ships were simply part of a routine naval patrol against piracy from nearby Somalia. The Guardian leads its Middle East news, reporting that Iran has said it wants international sanctions lifted on the day of the implementation of an agreement with world powers on its nuclear program. Last week, Tehran and the 6 powers agreed on the framework of a deal to be signed by the end of June, reining in Iran's nuclear program in return for the lifting of international sanctions. But the pace at which these sanctions will be lifted is one of the outstanding issues still to be agreed in the final accord. The Independent reports that French television network TV5 Monde has said that it was hacked by individuals claiming to belong to ISIS after its TV station was brought to a halt and its website and social media pages were hit. The hackers posted documents on the broadcaster's Facebook page that purported to be the identity cards and CVs of relatives of French soldiers involved in anti-ISIS operations, along with threats against the troops. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East headlines in the international papers. From Germany, the Deutsche Welle reports that Islamist extremists gave no reason for the mass release of 216 Yazidis on Wednesday after holding them for 8 months in northern Iraq. General Hiwa Abdullah, a Peshmerga commander in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk, said many of the hostages were in poor health on their release and showed signs of abuse and neglect. And finally, the International New York Times reports that a federal judge in Brooklyn has largely upheld a jury verdict that found a Middle Eastern bank liable for 24 terrorist attacks, but agreed to drop 2 of those attacks from the verdict. In addition to challenging the verdict, Arab Bank had sought a new trial and an expedited appeal, but the judge denied both motions and said the bank could not appeal the jury's decision until after the damages portion of the trial. And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow. Bye for now.